Recentemente hanno rivelato il trailer di un gioco che ha attirato molto l'attenzione. Un gioco che si chiama Where Winds Meet. E dovrebbe essere una sorta di open world free to play, oltretutto. Ovviamente, arrivando dall'Oriente, questo tipo di gioco, uno potrebbe pensare che ci sono meccaniche gacha. Io francamente non lo so, ma c'è un content creator che io seguo molto, che è Luke Stevens, che ha avuto modo di avere accesso a una preview del gioco, d'accordo? E l'ha provata. Perciò c'è il suo video, che noi vedremo con i sottotitoli automatici, ovviamente, e quindi ho pensato di vederlo insieme a voi, d'accordo? Così almeno approfondiamo un tantino il gioco, perché la cosa interessa moltissimo anche a me. Ecco qua. Where Winds Meet. Eccolo qua, non Where Will Smith. Pronti?
Where Winds Meet is a very unique game. It has Souls-like boss fights against horses. It also has an expansive open world that lets you seamlessly travel between regions as you go through the game, which, bear in mind, has approximately 150 hours worth of story-based content, which is wild. And to put it simply, it is
Aspetta un attimo, 150 ore di contenuti narrativi? Ma sul serio? Minchia.
Massive open world adventure RPG that is being put together by a pretty massive team, all inside a package that they aim to release free to play, monetized only through optional cosmetics that have no gameplay effect whatsoever. So there is no pay to win or anything like that. It
non
even
c'è pay
supports
to
other
win,
things like
solo cose
co-op
estetiche.
if you want to play through boss fights with your friends or just
dice
explore the
non
world with your
paywall.
friends. It's ridiculous. Now, naturally, a lot of this sounds too good to be true, so when the devs reached out to me and asked if I would like to play it as part of an I Tried video,
così sembra
to give it
troppo
a
bello
shot
per essere
myself,
vero.
I said, sure, so long as I'm allowed to say whatever I want to say about the game after I've played it. And they said, okay. So they have very generously offered to sponsor this video, and they gave me access to the game for like 4 or 5 days to play through, and I will tell you what,
minchia,
I'm
l'ha
pretty
giocato
impressed.
per
I have a
4-5
couple of little
giorni?
things that I want to point out and some little places I think could stand to be improved. But seriously, like, this game is genuinely quite impressive. Like, it's kind of blowing my mind that nobody's talking about this, but I think that's exactly why they wanted to do this video and sponsor videos like this, so that people like me could talk about it and share it with our audiences, so you at least become aware of it. After all, it is free, so you can try it when it launches, and if you love it, awesome. If you don't, no sweat off
Ma
their
io
back.
sto ancora
It's free
cercando
after all,
di
so it's
di-
something that is
di
just open. They just want
capacitarmi.
you to know about it and make you aware of it, because what they have here is pretty impressive. And again, I just want to stress that, like, when we negotiate these deals, I put in black and white in writing that I'm allowed to say whatever I want to say, positive or negative. And so the fact that they agreed to it shows, for one, they're pretty confident in what they have here. And two, the fact that now I can say, even with that agreement, that I am really, really impressed, I think speaks volumes to what's actually here, because this is unlike anything I've probably ever played in a lot of really good ways, and it's breaking my brain that this is not being discussed more. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about it today. I'm going to share it with you, and then you can check it out if you're interested. For me,
è quello che
the
sta
highlight of the game
facendo
is probably
esplodere
the
il
big
cervello
boss
anche a me.
fight.
Scusate un attimo, stiamo parlando quindi di un gioco che ha 150 ore di contenuti narrativi, immagino, tra quest principali e secondarie, all'interno di open world, con questa qualità, con questo combat system, con questi contenuti completamente free, e le microtransazioni che ci sono non sono roba dietro un paywall, sono solamente estetiche e non creano differenza all'interno del gameplay? Ma che cazzo? Come? Cosa? Perdonatemi, ammetto che ci credo quando lo vedo, nel senso, però c'è una preview di Luke Stevens che di solito è piuttosto onesto nelle cose.
They have a ton of these unique boss fights in the open world that you can stumble onto either as parts of side activities or as part of the main story, with big boss fights tied to those events as well.
Okay.
This one is one you can find in the open world, and he's got his own ridiculous set of moves, multi-phase fight.
Questo è un boss
he requires very particular
all'interno dell'open
approach,
world.
no spoilers or anything, to find success. But as you can see,
I miei
it
seri dubbi.
utilizes
Anch'io ho i miei seri
things
dubbi, mi
such
sembra
as
impossibile.
iframe dodging, perfect parry systems, different abilities that you you can slot yourself based on how you want to play, different abilities based on which of the 7 primary weapon types you want to use. And there's all sorts of other things like status effects and things that you can apply to your weapons if you want to use those consumable items. It is a very in-depth and intense combat system that will be familiar if you have played a lot of Souls-like games before, and it's also quite scalable.
Il combattimento è un po' Souls-like, ma onestamente non tanto.
Parry window extension.
Non è Phantom Blade Zero, è Where Winds Meet.
And you can make it easier to parry attacks.
Vedo sponsorizzato, già questo dice molto. Allora, quando c'è un video sponsorizzato, ragazzi, bisogna sempre prendere le cose con le pinze. Ma lui ti ha spiegato anche quali sono stati i termini della sponsorizzazione, ovvero lui ha accettato solo a patto di poter dire quello che vuole. Quindi mo ascoltiamo quello che ha da dire e vediamo un po', perché sembra strano anche a me, ma Luke Stevens non mi pare uno che debba necessariamente, cioè o gli hanno dato 150.000 euro o gli hanno dato una somma gigantesca, altrimenti perché uno come lui che copre tantissimi giochi diversi in senso critico dovrebbe vendersi per una cosa del genere? Non ha alcun senso. Mo sono curioso di vedere quali sono i contro, perché anche a me sembra strano. Pure le cutscene.
It's way more robust a combat system than I was expecting, honestly. Like a lot of games like this, you play it and it's pretty much like button mashing or something. That is not this game. If you want a challenge, this game has got it, I'll tell you what. But what's also impressive is that I was playing a playtest version of the game,
button
not a
mashing,
final
cioè,
launch version,
pure
not a final version that they're going to be sending out, you know, and officially releasing.
Quindi è una
this is a
cutscene
work in
questa
progress build of a beta. And it's already very, very high performance. I played it both on my big gaming PC and also on my laptop. As you can see here with this footage taken from my gaming laptop, I was thoroughly impressed at how well it ran and looked even on portable, lesser powered hardware. Like,
questo sul laptop con la 3070,
game, which is quite nice to see. It means that you can probably eventually play this on your handhelds, whether it's a Steam Deck or an ROG Ally or something, pretty easily, or on a gaming laptop, as you can see here. But okay, let's back up. What do you actually do when you're playing through Where Winds Meet? What is the typical session look like? When you boot up the game, you will probably have just finished a mission or something where you left off. So you can choose to pursue the main quest and continue on your way that way, or you can engage with side quest, or simply explore the open world and find activities to keep yourself busy that way. And there's a lot of these, like a lot of them, whether it's just finding cool little tidbits out in the open world, like treasure chests or unique loot drops and things that you might find, or even like coming across different characters like this guy who you can engage in basically like it's kind of hard to describe, but it's kind of like a rap battle. They call it Gift of Gab. It's a unique ability that you have, as you can see. But basically, you go through and you duel based on dialogue and dialogue choices instead of with like weapons. And they use this card-based system to fight it out with words. It's very, very interesting. And this
sono
is
dei
just
minigiochi da mini attività nell'open world, un po' la Ubisoft per capirci.
A guy like this, it's crazy. Other things may be finding a guarded chest and then using one of your abilities you can learn from NPCs in order to take the item out of it before the guard can stop you, and then you run off. And you know, you just explore the world this way, finding crafting materials, doing side quests. It's going to be a formula that's
ricorda molto anche la sfida in Odyssey. Infatti mi ricorda gli open world alla Ubisoft.
But it's all pretty well executed, to be fair. I mean,
già una volta rilasciato il pay to win, quindi anche lui lo sa. Finora hanno detto che no, le transazioni, le microtransazioni non saranno con effetti sul gameplay. Poi se hanno mentito è un'altra cosa.
Tied to a narrative. It was always tied to a character that needed something for an actual reason within their life in this world, and they seem to have executed on all of these ideas pretty damn well, if I do say so myself. I was pretty impressed. You know, a comparison I've heard people bring up with this game is that it feels almost like an Assassin's Creed game set in China.
Ecco,
and
infatti.
It, of course, has a lot more fantasy elements and stuff in it than a typical Assassin's Creed game, but I think that comparison is actually pretty fair. It's just executed really well, and the sheer volume of content is pretty ridiculous as well. I played, I don't even know, like well over a dozen hours of this over the course of the few days that I had it, and
no vabbè, ma che ha fatto la transizione verso
so much content and it's so varied. It's pretty ridiculous.
stile
And of course, a
artistico
lot of the
diverso.
quests will involve combat and different opportunities to fight either small individual guards or big boss brutes or even animals like bears and stuff you might encounter out in the open world. And the combat scales pretty well to all of these, whether you're fighting one-on-one or in groups. Thankfully, it actually works quite well across all of them with perfect dodges, parries for these, charged attacks. And again, this is all going to be different based on the weapons that you're using. I tended to use short swords primarily, but you can also fight with like fans and with spears.
Onestamente il combat system mi sembra molto figo.
Ranges and
Sta roba che ti sento a credere, dici anche io.
Well, it's again pretty expansive. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. I was going through just exploring.
Voi sottovalutate quanti soldi faranno in Cina solo con le skin.
I came across these guys.
Beh, allora, se è così, praticamente stanno seguendo il ragionamento di all'interno del gioco ti diamo delle ricompense estetiche che sono francamente molto blande, poi però nello store c'è la roba fighissima. No? Dovrebbe essere così il ragionamento. E questo non è pay to win, è pay to shine praticamente quello che si dice cioè quando le skin più fighe sono solo sullo store, no?
That were running along a trail.
Giochi come Path of Exile possono reggersi solo sui cosmetici, infatti.
Heaven group, they're like disciples of that teaching, I guess, and you can join them running around in a bathing suit or a towel, I guess, and you have to chant at the specific times that they chant as well in order to level up and gain certain perks and buffs and stuff. And this is just one of the like random things you can find while running around in the
sono
open
le micro
world. It's crazy. But again, for me, the real
sono le
highlight
microattività
were the boss
a destra e a
fights
manca.
and things that they had in the game.
X-Prime,
to
Giorgio,
really
grazie mille dei
push
follow,
your,
ragazzi.
Your skills and your abilities to the limit. And what's interesting about all these boss fights also is that if you're struggling with one, they actually have an in-game system for you to basically go into a training arena.
Anche Overwatch, sì, ma anche Path of Exile. Ok, ragazzi, ma questo
without having to spend resources
Overwatch è
or,
multiplayer.
Like individual items to
questo
give
è
you
single,
status effects
mi
that
pare
you
di
have to
capire.
otherwise craft or find out in the open world. And you can try out different weapon sets and types in that training mode, which is what this footage is of right here. It's just everything is really well thought out. Like if you're struggling against a boss, you can choose to train against it. Or if you want to just go straight into it and play on the hardest difficulty and do no training, you can do that as well. You can make it however you want to. And there's a lot of these and they're all totally different. The first boss I showed you had a very different attack pattern and style than the Heartseeker enemy you can see on screen now. And this is one of the early game bosses meant to get you introduced to the parry system, since she has a lot of attacks that are particularly vulnerable to perfect parries. It's just really well done. Again, like I really enjoy it. And you can also go back and grind these boss fights out more if you want to keep grinding out certain like crafting materials or something that they drop. There's just a lot of cool things here in terms of quality of life improvements to a formula that's otherwise very familiar. A lot of open world games have bosses, yeah, but they don't go the extra mile to add in the ability to refight the bosses or the ability to train against them. If you're really struggling against one, you want to get better at parries, just go back and grind that out. It's just not something they do, but all of those things have been considered here and thought of, which is awesome. And like I said earlier, there is co-op in the game. I wasn't able to test it myself because I didn't have anybody else playing at the same time I was, but I've seen footage of it and it seems like it works pretty seamlessly. You basically just load in with a friend of yours and you can play through the game together, fighting bosses or whatever you want to do. It's been developed in a way where from the start they built things anticipating another player so it can scale up accordingly to make sure it's not just a walk in the park and a total joke once you add another player. And I mean, again, it's just they make this look easy where they seemingly have thought of everything, but that's just what we're dealing with. It's a crazy expansive game where they have thought of pretty much everything already.
Onestamente mi sembra un gioco open world alla Ubisoft. Non ho idea di quanto figa sia la storia, non ho idea di quanto fighe siano le attività, ma è come se ti dicessero che arriva un nuovo Assassin's Creed ed è gratis con le skin.
It will blow your mind just how much stuff is here. It's a little crazy and it can be very intimidating, to be very, very fair. As you can see here, like this is just one particular thing from one vendor that grants you certain abilities and different improvements to your character. And in order to level these up, like to gain wall running as an ability, you have to submit these oddities you find out in the world. And this is just one guy that has his own sort of shop of abilities that he can offer you. There's multiple of these throughout the game that I saw in my short time
Ci
with
sono
the game.
molteplici
There's also
alberi di
like a whole
abilità.
separate leveling system for your own character's abilities and for different skill sets within the weapons that you have and all sorts of stuff like that. It's crazy. Like, there is a lot of customization here in terms of gameplay if you want it. They also just do a good job in the open world of giving you big set pieces you see in the distance as points of interest to lure you into them. Like in this case, I wanted to go check this out and I start riding towards it. The weather changes and shifts as I start heading up closer to the gigantic statue.
Oh, che sta succedendo? Scusate, ragazzi. Scusate un attimo, ragazzi. Mi si è puntato tutto. Non so, c'ho avuto un mega freeze, mi si è bloccato tutto quanto. Scusate un attimo. È tutto a posto di qua? Mi vedete sempre, ragazzi? È tutto a posto? Ok. Bene. Sì. No, perché c'ho avuto il computer che per tipo 6 secondi si è frizzato completamente. Così. Va bene. Ok.
This ended up kickstarting an
Perdonatemi.
entire side quest that ended in a pretty intense boss fight that I just came across because I saw a big thing in the distance. Like, it's really, really refreshing to see this kind of thing, because I feel like so often people overcomplicate open worlds, like with those stereotypical collectathons where all of the game is just about going and finding 15 different ones of these, and then 5 pieces of the armor set to be able to craft it, and then you have to go and you grind out the wood and you grind out metal, and then you go and do this, and it just makes the open world adventure game a tedium simulator, and it kills all of the enjoyment by just filling it with
Simulatore di
busy work.
tedio,
And
serio.
that is something that they just bypass here. They just focus on, hey, if you want to do a boss fight, yeah, come here. There's a boss fight at the end of this quest line. Enjoy it. And it's, again,
Ci ha frizzato, non ci crede
now, I feel
manco
like here we
lui.
should discuss the cosmetic system, because that's also a big component of this. After all,
vediamo il
this game
sistema
is
cosmetico,
free
esatto.
to play. Like, you can just download this when it launches and play it without having to pay 70, 80 bucks for the 150 hours of content. And they have to make money somehow. How are they doing it? Cosmetics. There's a lot of them, whether it's entire sets of cosmetics or, like, you know, a unique skin for your character, or even down to like mounts and stuff. But without a doubt, my favorite one is that you can actually purchase a mount. It's one of the more unique mounts I've ever seen in the game. It is literally a goose. You literally just stand on the goose and then he replaces your horse. And this becomes
No, ma c'è una... La mount
this becomes your
è
mount.
una...
So if
è
you want to
un'anatra.
ride a goose, you can do that in this game. Like, never would have thought of that. When they reached out, they're like, hey, Luke, do you want to check out our game? Do you want to see what it's like? If you like it, maybe talk about it. I was like, sure. I never ever thought I would end up with a goose mount, but here we are. The armor gear itself is something that you'll earn mostly through quests and completing objectives, boss fights, things like that. It's, again, pretty standard fare for these types of games. But again, it's important to stress, they've told me 1,000 times over, there are no pay to win elements. If you buy a fancy skin,
Hanno
it
detto
doesn't
più
magically
volte
make you better
niente
at
pay
the
to
game.
win.
The gear is something you gain through gameplay. They have no plans to do any sort of pay to win stuff. Nothing like that.
Il
Like,
gear
the stuff
solo
you
in
buy
game.
is for looks. The stuff that actually has an effect on gameplay is stuff you earn in the game itself. If you want to play through the entire game with just the basic cosmetics and never change anything, just using the stuff you unlock in the game, you can do that, no problem. Here's another look at some of these different talents and abilities. These are tied to completing various boss fights with particular challenges. As you can see here, the Twin Lions.
Queste sono le
boss fight,
challenge
it
che ti
increases
sbloccano
damage
delle
dealt to Twin
abilità.
Lions in the exhausted state by 10% in order to
Sicuri
unlock this.
vestiti
After you
sexy
defeat the
dietro
Twin Lions in
paywall.
the realm of chivalry, after the battle starts, grab the golden ball twice, at least once, using the moon grabber, and ensure you throw the golden ball before the progress bar fills up each time. So you have to like juggle this ball that's in the arena while you're fighting the boss. And by doing that, you unlock an ability that makes you more powerful and better. And this is true for all of these different bosses throughout the game. There's a bunch of these. Like, it's ridiculous how much stuff is in here. It's kind of baffling. I mean, we always joke, sometimes you see a game that makes it look like everybody else isn't even trying. this game in terms of sheer volume of mechanical complexity and then also just content is crazy. Like, it just is baffling. It's really, really wild. Here's another look at some of the different cosmetics and
Io non
skins.
so che
Some of
dire.
them are purchasable, some of them are just unlockable in the game itself. It's just up to you to decide what you want to play with, but this gives you at least a little taste of what they're thinking in terms of style. We're not getting any sort of Beavis and Butthead Cartoon Network looking skins or anything. They're all pretty well tied into the universe and the world, and nothing's too outrageous, at least as far as I've seen. It all seems pretty grounded. And I mean, again, do I need to say any more? I feel like I could end the video just simply ending looking at the goose. The goose mount. I just love it so much.
La
It's
Mount
so silly.
Papera la voglio.
I just think it's so funny. I don't know why. I just think it's so funny. The idea of like, I am this great warrior. And then you stand on this little goose as it starts running. It's funny. Anyway, as for the world size itself, this is just a little look at how massive it is. This is taken from a later game save that they hooked me up with. Basically, the starter area of the game is sort of like the tutorial section, and it gets
Ok, quanto è grande la
and
mappa?
then it opens
Sicuro
up to the broader
gigante.
world, and then the later game is staged in
Esce il
a
15
separate
novembre per
map
la cronaca,
that
me l'hanno
is,
appena scritto.
you know, much higher level and much more intense with better loot and better drops and better boss fights and stuff. It's just more difficult. But this save file in particular is from one of those later game saves that I put a handful of hours into as well, in addition to the hours I put in the early game. And you can see just like the sheer volume of different fast travel points. Each one of these is, you know, maybe a minute or two apart from each other. It's a massive, massive game. That's the point. It's a massive map with tons of little secrets and
Sembra essere
different things
gigante
tucked
la
into nooks
mappa.
and crannies,
Ora,
and,
da tradizione
there's
Ubisoft
just a lot
sappiamo
here.
che non
And again,
necessariamente è
for
un
being
bene
a
questo.
free game,
Però,
it's
ecco,
just
esatto, spero anch'io che non
ridiculous
sia
how much
vuoto.
stuff is here. It's
Però pare di no.
because typically I think people hear free to play and they might think like lower quality. That, as far as I've seen, is not the case. Like, the amount of stuff here is wild, but it's also all pretty solid quality as well, whether it's the boss fights, the puzzles, the set pieces, the missions, all of that. It's quite robust.
Non è un MMO.
Dare I say. I'm just genuinely
È single
impressed by it.
player, c'è la
I don't know what
coop.
else there is to say beyond that. I'm just
Però
genuinely
è-
pretty impressed. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's always going to be shortcomings, especially in a beta playtest
Oh,
like this.
I difetti.
The one thing I will say is that I was surprised how often pop-in was a problem, especially
Il
in these
pop-in
open world
per ora è un
areas. If you watch some
problema.
of the NPCs in the distance,
Giorgio, grazie mille
you
della
saw one
sub.
pop
Grazie
out.
di cuore.
As you start moving through the environment, it happens a lot in more densely crowded areas. It's not that big of a deal, frankly. I've seen much worse pop-in games like AC Unity, for example, which comes to mind. But it is noticeable. It is something that comes up multiple times.
Quindi
and
va
you see it a
bene,
good
lato
amount,
tecnico.
specifically in cities.
Per
and
chi non
places
sapesse
with
cos'è
a
il-
lot of NPCs.
Per chi non
My
sapesse
understanding-
cos'è il pop-in è quando tu sei in uno scenario, tu giri la visuale e sono le cose che compaiono così, appaiono di botto perché il gioco non ha fatto in tempo a renderizzarle, praticamente, no? E quindi invece di vedere uno scenario, vedi un po' di cose e poi compaiono le cose. Quello non dovrebbe succedere, quello è il pop-in e fa brutto, ok? Quindi lui dice che nel gioco
As
c'è,
this is known, they're working on it.
Però
It's
questa è
gonna
una
be approved by
beta,
final launch,
effettivamente.
but it is something I noticed, so I'm going to mention it. Oh yeah, I also forgot about this. There's little world events you can complete where a small cat, Meow Meow, who wears a little
PS5
hat,
dice che costa 20
he
forse
gives you stuff if
c'è
you complete little challenges.
forse c'è il
I forgot about that,
pacchetto
but yeah, I figured I'd mention that. That's one of the open world activities, is that he sets up these like blue flames you have to go and travel through.
Forse c'è il
within a set
pacchetto
period of
early
time.
adopter
And if
o
you
magari
complete
quello
it, he gives
deluxe.
you, like some crafting
No, succede
materials and
spesso.
some little treats and doodads, and
Effettivamente
it's
in
very
early
cute,
quello ci
so
sta.
there's that. And then this area right here is another instance where you can notice
Il gioco in
some of
realtà è
the
uscito a dicembre
restrictions
2024 in
of
Cina.
how
Ah,
scalable
ok.
the game is. You can see that as you run closer and closer to the gate, you get more guards popping in, and because
Vedi,
it's so wide
ecco,
open,
ecco,
it's
esatto.
really
Vedi,
clear and
questo è un
visible when
problema.
things are popping in. Again, not that big of a deal. If you play a game like this and you're like, yeah, it's really great,
Ma in
combat's good,
Cina è
boss
già
fights are
uscito.
great, it's really pretty, but there's guards that pop in every once in a while.
Non ne
Like,
ho
you
idea di
probably were
quanto
never
è
going
in
to have
giga.
fun playing a video game to begin with. It's like, it's not that big of a deal. But again, I noticed it, so I'm going to point it out because that's the deal we made when we agreed to do this, is that I was going to talk about it. Beyond that, I would say that there's a lot of complexity with the leveling system and how the player character scales up in power and abilities, talents, and all sorts of stuff as you play on. And it can be really intimidating how much stuff there is. And often it's not
infatti è
super
una
clear
delle
how
cose che
it
pensavo.
is structured
Ci sono
or
tanti
works. Like, for
livelli
example,
di
your character has
progressione.
different levels. As you
Ecco,
can
è
see right
complicato
here, I'm level 40
fare la
out of
build.
40. Does that mean I'm max level? No, it's because there's an
100 giga
additional
richiede.
level
Ah,
that's
ecco.
specifically for solo mode, where you are at level 4, which caps your max level at 40. In order to move on past that to level 5 for solo mode level, you have to reach level 40 and complete 2 of the trials, which are basically these combat trials where you fight enemies, and it's kind of like a DPS check. It's like, if you can beat these guys, you're ready to move on to the higher difficulty.
Beh, qui non sto
It makes sure
capendo
that you
però.
have the best gear equipped. It makes sure that you at least have an understanding of the mechanics to use your character properly, and you can get past this challenge and this fight, so therefore you can move on to the next
Sì,
level
le build
of
sono
solo
abbastanza
mode,
complicate, mi pare di capire.
leveling, and move on to level 5 and then eventually 6. So it's easy to understand once you have it explained to you,
sembra proprio
but it
figo.
was something I didn't really understand when I started playing, and it was only once I like sat down and really tried to figure it out that I was able to put it together. So I think, more clear tutorials on the leveling system would also be appreciated. There might be better tutorials in the original language. I'm not sure. Most of the localization is pretty good as far as I can tell. I can't
La equalizzazione è buona, però dice che i tutorial sono un po' scarsi perché è complicato il gioco e certe volte potresti non capire bene che minchia di progressione devi fare.
Because you have to open up this menu that's different from this menu and then go to specifically do the trials so that then you can upgrade your actual full solo player level and then level up in your individual character level from there. Sounds convoluted because it is a little bit convoluted, so I think more clarity would be appreciated. One of the other things is that you also will collect so much stuff as you play through levels. Sometimes it can just get overwhelming and you lose track of it. Like, as you can see here, I just gained 2 Echo Jades, 500 Zao coins, 1 Oscillating Jade, 750 XP, and then I got 3 of these cards that are specifically for improving the exploration level of the map, because there's certain movement abilities locked behind map-based experience and expertise. Again, there's just so many moving parts here that it's easy to kind of just check out and be
è complicato, ci sono tanti meccanismi interni al gioco e si potrebbe perdere un po' il filo.
And I think that's perhaps the biggest thing right now, is that I feel like even starting from a level 0 character effectively, which I did, and then playing and even getting the chance to play a late game version of that character that has a lot of new abilities and skills available to him, I still found
Giuseppe,
it pretty
grazie mille,
overwhelming.
benvenuto
So
dagli sponsor su YouTube.
If they can streamline a couple of the onboarding process,
Giorgio, grazie mille di bits. Figurati, grazie di cuore.
Works, I think that could go a long way.
Il combattimento mi sembra figo a me.
To get into a game, which otherwise I think seems really
È meglio di quello Ubisoft a occhio e
I'm thoroughly
croce.
impressed by what they've put together here. I had a really good time playing it. If I could play more right now, I would. I genuinely had a really good time, and it scratched an itch I didn't even know I had. So I'm here for it. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this one. I think it's one to check out. The fact it's free is really cool. But even if it were $60 or $70, I would still be pretty impressed with the sheer volume of content and complexity they have here. It makes some of these other big studios look like they're not even trying, honestly. It's pretty wild. So check it out. Links below. Wishlist it on Steam so you get notified of future updates, all of that stuff. Thank you to the devs for reaching out and offering me the chance to play it early and talk about it, and for being so cool about me being able to say whatever I want, because that's not that common nowadays. I will tell you what. But until next time, my friends, much love, hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.
Allora, sentite un po'. Come sintetizzo quello che sto per dire? In realtà il mio commento finale è soltanto uno, no? Anzi, sono 2. 1. Luke Stevens lo seguo da tanto tempo e questo che ha fatto adesso è un contenuto sponsorizzato, ma non mi sembra tipo da prendere e dire una cosa buona a prescindere soltanto perché, oh mio Dio, è un contenuto sponsorizzato, e a quanto pare poteva dire quello che voleva comunque. Liberi di crederci o no. Io personalmente un po', gli credo, lo seguo da tanto tempo, è uno di quelli di cui grosso modo mi fido, magari non sono sempre d'accordo con le opinioni, ma va bene, ma questo sta a voi. Ora riguardo al gioco però. Quindi, mi state dicendo che sta per uscire un gioco con una mappa gigantesca, un open world completo, decine o centinaia di attività, 150 ore di contenuto narrativo tra main quest e quest secondarie, un'infinita quantità di step di progressione, un sacco di contenuti da fare in game senza paywall, e le microtransazioni sono soltanto estetiche senza influire minimamente sul gameplay. Questo gioco è gratis e esce a novembre. Ho una sola risposta per voi. Quant'era il 15 novembre? Ho capito bene? Ragazzi, il 15 novembre gli facciamo Tana. Che dite? Lo scopriamo. Non ho altro da dire. Perché se è vero,